It's endorsed by the California Teachers Association, the California School Boards Association, and the California Library Association.
California's Gold is provided to the PBS affiliates statewide through a grant from Wells Fargo Bank. Wells Fargo, coming through for Californians for over 140 years.
Hi, I'm Huell Howser. Welcome to the Coast Guard Air Station, Humboldt Bay, located up here on the very northern part of our state's coast. Now, we are getting ready. Number one, it's a beautiful day. Our helicopter is warming up over there, and we're getting ready to go out to sea on an honest-to-goodness adventure, because we're going to be visiting a place today that very few people have ever been before. It promises to be a great day. So if you're up for this trip, as always, you're invited to come on along with us. All you have to do is climb aboard that helicopter with us as we continue our search together, this time out at sea for California's gold. Come on. It's some of the most beautiful coastline you'll ever see. We were heading north from Eureka to Crescent City, which is about as far north as you can get before you go over into Oregon. And when we got to Crescent City, we headed due west out to sea because our destination was 7 miles off the coast. Now, at first, it was just a tiny speck off in the distance. And then, there it was in all its mysterious majesty. The St. George's Reef Lighthouse, a huge granite structure seeming to rise up right out of the ocean. Now, this old lighthouse has been standing guard on this reef since 1892. Decommissioned in 1974, these days it's deserted. But it's a magnificent reminder of earlier times. And we were going to get to spend a day there. Problem was, how do you get on this thing? There was no place for a boat to land. Well, the Coast Guard had the answer. We were lowered one at a time in a wire basket. Definitely one of life's experiences I'll never forget. Touchdown a little hard, but believe me, I was glad to be on that big old rock. And after waving goodbye to our Coast Guard buddies in the helicopter, it was time to begin our historic lighthouse adventure. They're not used to having company, are they?
No, they sure aren't. Welcome to St. George Reef Lighthouse.
Thank you, sir. We thought we'd never get here, but we're here.
You sure are.
Glad to be here.
Yeah, us too, believe me.
Now, you've never been out here before.
No, I haven't. And I've been working on the history and trying to save this lighthouse for almost 10 years now. This is my first time aboard. Yeah.
Well, this is very exciting. Now, the way we arrived was kind of high-tech, being let down from one of your Coast Guard helicopters. This is the way they used to get out here. Could you explain this to us?
I sure could, Huell. Of course, they didn't have helicopters back in the late 1800s. They had a boom, much like the one you see here. The original one was only 60 feet long, but that brought the boat in perilously close to the rocks over here. So they constructed this new 90-foot boom, gave them a little extra margin of safety. They'd lower a hook from that. The boat would pull up underneath, specially equipped with a bridle on it. And the crewman standing on top of the boat would hook onto this cable right at exactly the right moment, right at the peak of the wave, and they'd snatch them, literally snatch them out of the water. Bring them up, set them down here, the people would debark.
So this would swing around
Right.
and let them down. The boat, the whole boat would be let down right here.
Right you are.
Now, it doesn't look in very good shape right now.
No, in fact, I'm wondering, I think just about that one single strand of cable there is what's holding it up right now.
Wow.
So it's seen the effect of weathering for a good many years since maintenance.
Is the idea, and boy, here's the idea right here, that the rocks and the tides were so treacherous that you really couldn't get near this lighthouse, could you, in a boat?
Well, that's why it's called a reef, and that's why they had to build a lighthouse here, is because St. George Reef was so dangerous to shipping. California's worst maritime disaster ever occurred here on this reef when the brother Jonathan sunk with 166 souls lost and I think about 15 survivors. Is that right, Guy?
That was back in
1865.
And that's what started the whole movement to build this lighthouse out here.
Absolutely.
Boy, you can really feel the power of the surf, and it's not even it's a nice day today.
It is a nice day.
So it must get really nasty out here when there's a storm.
Absolutely. I think there's a history of a 196-foot wave hitting the lighthouse at one point.
It had what's called green water, which is the green colored water there to differentiate from shallow water, splashing up toward the lantern room. That happened a couple times as far as recorded in 1923, and then again in the 1950s. There were some tremendous storms that blew out here.
You know, I'm surprised how big this thing is.
Well, I'm surprised not only by how big it is, but how massive it is, and considering the technology of the time in which they built it, that they were able to do this job at all.
All right, we're going to go up these stairs. Now, are these stairs...
Are they Coast Guard approved? Is that what you're going to ask me? Well, obviously all the railings are totally unreliable and in most cases completely missing. So watch your step, Huell.
All right, we're on our way up. This is interesting. We're going up these 115-year-old wonderful old metal stairs, and we're going in this lighthouse. Come on, fellas. We're going inside. Okay, we are inside. And fellas, I've never been in a lighthouse before, so you got to tell me what this room is, where we are right now.
Well, this is the main machinery space of the lighthouse. And over the years, it's housed a variety of pieces of equipment to make the lighthouse work. What you see behind you there are 3 generators, diesel-driven generators, or the remains of them, actually.
Now, are these, when would these have been put in here?
Probably in the 1950s. There was a total overhaul of the lighthouse sometime in the 1950s when they really updated and modernized it with these type of motors.
So this isn't the original stuff?
No. Back in the 1892 when this first opened up, they was steam generated. There was a huge boiler that provided the power for the station and the fog signals.
Right here in this room?
Right here in this room. There was 2 engines. They were called the East and the West engine, and they were steam driven. And then 10 or 15 years later, then they got into a different type. It was a Doak, a 3 or 4 stroke, big piston-wheeled affair that generated the steam.
So this is really the heart of the lighthouse right here.
The heart of the lighthouse, right.
Okay, let's move on. We've got a lot more to see. These are the old ones. These look pretty old themselves. Got a lot of character to them.
There's still people that know how to run these.
All right, now we're going to get upstairs and see where'd the commander go? Don't want to lose you.
I got to bring our equipment.
Okay. Are these stairs safe?
They look safe to me, Huell. But you know, you're going up first.
Oh, wow. This is a tall lighthouse. Okay. Oh, we're already outside.
We're on the, this is called the top of the caisson. The lower part is called the caisson.
Okay, now this is the boom that we were just down looking at. There it is up there.
There's the boom, and that's how they got on board most of the time. And the wooden part is called the mast stay, and that probably is very close to being original equipment out here. They replaced the metal part in about 1928.
But the wood is the same.
The wood has been there for...
And what is this?
That was the machinery that operated the boom during Coast Guard days. So that was a controller who stood, I've seen, they stood about here and operated gears and levers like this. And then they could see the boom was out of way, so from this point, they could see what was happening down there and operate the gears and levers to lower these and raise these people up.
Wow. Now, the raising was one problem, but the lowering was actually more dangerous. And they had more lighthouse keepers killed on this light than any other light in the United States. 5 were killed, 3 in one day while they were being lowered into the water. A sneaker wave caught the boat and smashed it against the rocks, capsized it, threw them into the water. The lighthouse keeper himself inflated a raft and went into the water and was able to rescue one unconscious man. 2 of them were able to get to a mooring buoy that was probably out that way somewhere. And then they were able to get some help from town, a fishing boat.
So this was not necessarily, when you got assigned to come out to this lighthouse, this wasn't necessarily something you went home and with great glee told your wife that you were being sent out to the St. George's Reef Lighthouse.
Well, that's true. I think Guy really is the historian here. He can probably tell you more about the numbers of keepers that sought transfers away from here.
Really?
Yeah, from the time the lighthouse opened in 1891 until the Coast Guard took over in 1939, there were 80 keepers out here. And the record is that more than half of them requested transfer very quickly. And then the rest of them not too long afterwards. But then there were others who loved it out here. There's cases of 3 keepers who spent 20 or 30 years at a time out here and loved every minute of it.
Now, what was the reason given for not liking it out here?
The pure isolation and the difficulty, especially for married people. They didn't allow, of course, married families to work out here like they did in some other lighthouses, the shore-based lighthouses. Families actually were part of the operation of the station.
Well, why wouldn't they let your wife come out here?
Terribly dangerous. But
what if she wanted to come out here?
There were visiting days. Yeah. And we've talked to keepers and so forth who had their wives come out, and they were plucked out of the ocean just like the keepers were, too, so it was a very frightening thing.
I think Guy actually has some old photos of some of the families visiting, but I'm sure they picked just the absolutely best days for it.
Right. All right, let's look over the edge here. Oh, wow. Now, this really gives you the sense of where we are, doesn't it?
A terribly dangerous rock, but beautiful at the same time. You can understand why some people loved it because of the openness in the sea and the masted ships sailing by. But this is the outer point of the reef, and that's why the lighthouse was put here. Between here and shore, there's a 1-mile channel that's called the St. George Channel, and ships could normally navigate through that. But if it was foggy or whatever, then it could be very treacherous. So they always kept the lighthouse to the port or starboard, whichever direction that they were heading, and then they knew they were safe.
I'm just looking, there are little bits of, looks like a railing that used to be around here that's been just disintegrated.
It's totally disintegrated, and it was a beautiful, ornate cast iron type railing. There's still remnants at the top, and we'll probably be able to see.
Are we going to be able to go up to the top?
We sure are.
Okay, because I don't know how much.
Well, you see out here, you asked if was a lighthouse working. It's been replaced by this buoy, which is a 2nd-generation buoy, an exposed location buoy. The original replacement for it was what we called a large navigational buoy that had generators inside, was a complete self-contained weather station. But now we have that buoy that warns the mariners, and then there's a little yellow buoy off that direction.
I'll even see that.
Yeah, it's operated.
So you mean all of this has been replaced by that little?
Absolutely.
Well, it may work just as well, but it's not as glamorous.
As the spokesman for the old lighthouse days, no, my heart is totally caught up in the old lighthouse keepers and the sacrifices and the human touch to the lighthouses. The electronics is much more efficient and probably safer, but people, as a rule, love or miss the days when the keepers were out here.
Yeah.
What you're standing on is actually a rain catchment system. Obviously, if you look at it now, the birds have been using it, but they would carefully scrub this in the beginning of the winter and get all the deck clean, and then they would catch the rainwater and it'd go into the cistern and provide for the steam for the fog signals, because the original ones were powered by steam.
So they had to be efficient out here.
Very efficient, and lots of lives depended on it. And each keeper's day was caught up with all of the activities of making sure that this equipment worked. And this is what happens back here when the stuff is not maintained. This is the remains of the old fog signal stanchion This was actually Coast Guard era. I call Coast Guard era after 1939. It was put in later than that. But a fog signal sat up here, mounted some huge, what they were called diaphones. And like a cheerleader's megaphone, that's it. Yeah, there was 2 of them. And they put out an incredible blast. Of course, during foggy weather, you couldn't see the light, so this warned the ships away.
Now, as we're looking at the seals actually climbing up the steps to the lighthouse, you were telling me something interesting about the pets that the lighthouse keepers actually had out here.
Yeah, they actually made pets out of the seals. And they had...
So they domesticated them?
They domesticated them. They had them on leashes, and they even had names.
You're kidding.
Yeah, pets and cats and dogs also.
So there would be... Would they try to make this as much like home as they possibly could?
Right, and I'm sure that was one of the elements to
You're
have.
nodding.
Oh, I think so. I think that's a human nature to do that, to try to put your mark on a place and make it comfortable. Certainly out here, any comfort that you could make.
Oh, now this is the main room. This is where it really happened.
This is where the light was. This is where the first order Fresnel lens first shown. Back in, what year was that, Guy?
1892. The lighthouse was completed in 91 and lighted in 92.
So the big lens would have been just right where we're standing right here.
Right, this is the base of the pedestal. This was called the pedestal.
And would it revolve?
It revolved, right, to produce what's called a characteristic, which is a navigational aid. Each lighthouse had a light pattern, which is that's called a characteristic, and that was determined by the speed and the rotation of the lens.
Now these little things?
Those are ventilators, because it could get very warm in here, and those allowed air to come in and out and ventilate this place. Because
so would there have been a noise in here?
Probably very quiet, actually.
Yeah.
The lens rotated by weights originally, with a drop tube. And the weights would go down and pull the lens and turn it. And then later years, there was a more sophisticated gear mechanism that was in here. And that's what was take a good part of this right here.
The pedestal was...
There's a pedestal here with just a fantastically well-balanced system of bearings on it, little wheel bearings. And the lens itself weighed a ton. Yeah, tons. And rotated on these fine bearings, and all done by a clockwork mechanism, as Guy was saying.
Well, I think we better introduce your guys over here now, because they're have kind of introduced themselves.
Yes,
what's happening here today?
Well, these 2 gentlemen are from the Coast Guard Ace Navigation Team in Humboldt Bay. And you can see, I think over here, there's several bullet holes in the windows, and unfortunately, someone has taken to shooting out the glass. And a lot of the deterioration we've seen in the structure is due to salt water and salty air being able to get in here, moist air.
So they're chipping out the old broken windows and putting in new ones.
That's right. And fellas, could you hold off on the hammering for just a minute? Thanks.
That's the commander speaking here. All right, so you're going to replace all of that.
That's our mission here today, really. The reason we came out today was to start replacing these lights, these windows, before we get it turned over to the lighthouse keepers. We want to turn it over at least weather tight to begin with.
Aha! The $1 million view right here. Oh, man. Look at this. Now this is the ultimate view right here.
This is what probably kept a lot of people out here. It's phenomenal. There's not another view like it anywhere.
Look at this. The sun's come out, the sun is glistening on the water, and as far as you can see, it's a beautiful, clear day. Now look, there's the shore over there to your left, Louis. How far off are we? They said 7 miles, but it doesn't look that far.
No, it doesn't. I think you brought some of your Southern California weather up here with you, Huell. It was more overcast when we started out this morning. It's cleared up beautifully. But the Crescent City Airport, and just beyond it is the town of Crescent City itself.
But are we 7 miles offshore?
from the nearest point of land, right, which is Point St. George, near the airport, where the helicopters left. From the harbor, it's about 13 miles from Crescent City. And since we're out in this, we're totally surrounded by an ocean, so it's a good time to point out that St. George Reef is a special classification as a lighthouse. It's a wave-washed lighthouse.
It's a what?
A wave-washed lighthouse. In other words,
wave-washed
wave-washed, right. That's a category of lighthouses. They categorize them by their location. Some were shore, where you could literally walk to them, some on small peninsulas, and that was another designation. And then this is a wave-washed lighthouse. It takes the full brunt of the entire Pacific Ocean.
Boy, we're taking the full brunt of... What are these things? You're covered with them.
A lot of shags out here, birds, seabirds, and then the flies follow that.
Goodness, this is nasty.
If you fish up in this area, that's what you put up with.
You're covered with them. Now, is this the original railing that was eaten away down on the first level we saw, and this is the way it looked?
Right, yeah, all the way around the lower part of the caisson. A beautiful ornamental ironwork.
We're up as high as you can get, unless you get to the... I don't think there's any way to get up there, is there?
No.
This is it.
This is it.
Well, how do you feel being up here?
Fantastic. This is the top of the world. This is the Mount Everest of lighthouses, is the way I think the best way to put it. Yeah. What an incredible view.
Now, do you think this is the original glass?
Yes, as far as I know, it's the original glass. There's no records that I found anywhere that indicates it's been replaced. Of course, there was no vandalism when it was, operating.
So this has been here since
Since the 1891, if it's the original glass.
It has withstood a lot.
Incredible, yeah. Storms and waves washing against it. It's possible that some of the panes were broken in those huge storms in the 50s, but there's no record of it.
And look down here. This is where the lens would have been, right here in the middle.
Right here in the middle. A lens that went probably, there's the top part where it turned. That's the anchor point on the top. And it would fill nearly the entire diameter of that circle there. Incredible big first order Fresnel lens.
Wow. This is... I don't know what I expected, but this is pretty neat.
It's phenomenal. All I've ever seen is pictures up here. Yeah, I am really pleased.
Are you jaded by all this, or have you? Does this still excite you too?
No, it really does excite me. I'm disappointed in the damage done to it, but considering there's been very little maintenance for the last 20 years, it's in good shape, and I think Guy and the keepers are going to take great care of it.
Okay, we're going to walk slowly back around here. This is something over here.
There's a nice piece of equipment over here that would be interesting to point out. It's a handhold. There's only one left. I think the others have fallen off.
A handhold?
Well, here it is. And those were, the keepers, of course, had to keep the outside of this immaculate, not a speck of anything. So they had to hold on at times, and sometimes the weather wasn't that great. But
oh, you mean right here?
Yeah, right here. Right.
There were two sets. One, I think, at this level, too.
Yeah.
So they would come up here to clean
the glass.
They had a little short step ladder or something, and they'd hold on while they clean the glass.
Or it may be
holding on right here.
Yeah.
On top of the world.
Yeah.
Wow. And we are on top of the world right now. How high up are we?
142 feet. They call it at the focal point. In other words, where all the light gathered from that lens projected its beam out at maximum intensity, 142 feet. So it's nearly about over 150 feet to the very top.
And how far could ships see this light?
About 20 miles at sea. Then you get into the curvature of the Earth and you lose the light.
Yeah.
But was measured in probably hundreds of thousands of candle power.
And there's the little buoy right out here that's replaced it. I hate to tell you, Commander, but that's a pretty sad-looking little buoy out there.
It does its job beautifully.
To say this old lighthouse has a rich history to it is really an understatement, isn't it?
Well, it sure is, dating as it did all the way back to 1891, when the Lighthouse Service first commissioned this lighthouse. They operated it until 1939, when the Lighthouse Service was merged with the Coast Guard. And then till 1975, the Coast Guard crews manned this structure, and it has a glorious tradition of marking this reef so mariners can pass by safely.
Now, that was till 1975. So since then, it's basically been sitting here empty and deserted.
Absolutely, and at the mercy of the elements, and you can see on a beautiful day like today, they're pretty impressive. During a storm, obviously, they'd be terrible. And I think there's been some vandalism, too. We saw it today, some things removed and some bullet holes, and that's really taken its toll. But we're proud to be able to turn this structure over to the St. George Reef Lighthouse keepers, and I think it'll start a new life now.
So you're going to give the lighthouse, or we, the taxpayers, are giving the lighthouse to you. Congratulations.
Thanks a lot.
Now what are you going to do?
It, and we appreciate and love the traditions out here so much that the taxpayers are very safe. They don't have to worry about us.
Now, what are you going to do with all of this?
We're going to restore. We're going to try to preserve elements of all the history, the U.S. Lighthouse Establishment, U.S. Lighthouse Service, and the Coast Guard. So we're going to convert some of the rooms back to their condition in the 1920s or before, and we'll save some of the elements we saw today, the Coast Guard history, the various documents and so forth, and then make this a safe place to come for the public. We have long-range plans for bringing people out here by helicopter.
So people will be coming out to see the old lighthouse the same way we did today, by helicopter.
By helicopter.
Not
right.
by Coast Guard helicopter.
Not by Coast Guard helicopter.
By private helicopter.
By private helicopter, right. And then everybody can share in those wonderful old traditions.
Now, when you talk about the traditions, we've been here all day, and we were excited before we got here. It's been a very exciting day since we've been here. What is it about the lore of lighthouses that still, in this modern day, just grabs us like it does?
Well, I think we talked before about what is a lighthouse? It's a monument to, we're going to not have to suffer disaster at sea. It's a monument to maritime safety. It's a demonstration of a commitment to humanity to stave off disaster at sea. I think that's part of it. But that's not all of it. I think the workmanship, the craftsmanship, the dedication of the people, the stories they have to tell over the years are just a heartwarming and rich and probably heartbreaking at times element of American history.
It's really the lore, isn't it?
The lore of the lighthouse, yeah, right. And people have said it so many times, there's a romance connected with it. And there definitely is. The sea, ships, people surviving storms, saving lives, the lifestyles in the lighthouses themselves and what the keepers had to put up with. All those things really lend to the romance.
Well, we've seen it all here today, and there it is, St. George's Reef Lighthouse. It's getting a new life. There the guys up putting the new glass in it now. Part of the continuing legacy of California. And the old lighthouse is really still very much alive and well, way out here at sea.
California's gold is provided to the PBS affiliates statewide through a grant from Wells Fargo Bank. Wells Fargo, coming through for Californians for over 140 years.
Hi, this is Huell Howser. And if you enjoyed this particular episode of California's Gold about the wonderful old lighthouse out in the ocean and would like to see it again or share it with your family and friends, it's available on video cassette. And remember, with every tape sent out, we'll contribute $5 to the California State Library Foundation's Families for Literacy program. So just call 1-800-266-KPBS, and we'll send it to you right away.
Tonight on KPBS, Nova travels to Stonehenge, Machu Picchu, and the Great Pyramids to explore the secrets of lost empires at 8. Then at 10, see some of the lesser-known customs and charms of Mexico. Also at 11, The Living Edens looks at life in Alaska's Denali Wilderness, followed by Charlie Rose at midnight.
Once they